Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going full on Hollywood, with a little bit of social commentary sprinkled in for good measure.
Always a good mix.
Right. You guys sent us this YouTube video, leaked footage of Blake Lively's alleged harassment, Candace Ep 137,
Oh, yeah,
from
Candace.
Candace Owens' channel, and let me tell you, it is a doozy.
It's a wild one.
I mean, we've got A-listers, lawsuits, leaked footage, even a Game of Thrones reference in there. I mean, what more could you ask for?
It's a really fascinating look into how narratives get kind of built up and then torn down, especially, in the digital age when you have celebrity and these accusations of harassment and these power dynamics all colliding.
And it all starts with Blake Lively, star of Gossip Girl, A Simple Favor, filing a lawsuit against Justin Baldoni,
Right.
who, is her co-star and the director in this film adaptation of It Ends With Us.
Mm-hmm.
And Lively is alleging that Baldoni engaged in some unwanted physical contact with her, made some inappropriate comments during the filming.
And the lawsuit really seems to focus on one scene in particular. It involved a slow dance.
Oh.
And Lively is saying that without an intimacy coordinator on set, Baldoni started touching her in ways that made her feel uncomfortable, like running his lips from her ear, like down her neck, and also making comments like about how good she smelled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she says that she did voice her discomfort, but that Baldoni dismissed her concerns with the comment, something like, "I'm not even attracted to you."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's the part that seems to have really gotten people talking, right? Because it makes you wonder about these power dynamics, especially given Lively saying, like, this touching wasn't even part of the script.
It's not even supposed to be happening. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you really have to wonder, was this, as Lively says, a director abusing his position?
Right.
Or is there another side to this story, which Baldoni would later claim?
And this is where Candace Owens comes in,
Yes,
right? With
yeah.
her,
Yes.
with her with her particular brand of skepticism. And right away, she expresses doubt about Lively's claims and frames it all within this idea of Taylor Swift feminism.
Yeah, she doesn't actually define what that is
No.
in the video, but you can kind of piece it together from the commentary, right? It seems to be this idea that you have these really high-profile women who are using their celebrity and their connections to get what they want.
Yeah.
And potentially silence anyone who disagrees with them. So Owen seems to be saying that maybe Lively is using her platform and her network, like her husband, Ryan Reynolds, her friend, Taylor Swift,
Oh.
to control how people see this whole film and maybe even punish Baldoni for not doing what she wanted.
Okay. So right away, Owens is planting seeds of doubt about Lively's motives. But how does Taylor Swift actually fit into all of this?
Well, according to Baldoni's countersuit, Lively was trying to change things about the film. She wanted to rewrite scenes and add new lines. And he's saying that during a meeting at Lively's house, Taylor Swift showed up. Yeah. And it seemed like she was agreeing with Lively's ideas. So Baldoni saw that as her trying to pressure him into doing what they wanted.
Okay, so maybe Owens is onto something with that Taylor Swift feminism thing.
Yeah. It's important to remember that this is all coming from Baldoni's side. We haven't heard Lively's perspective or Swift's,
Right.
on that meeting. But it does make things more complicated in terms of who has the power in this situation, right?
It shows you how much influence these A-list connections can have in Hollywood.
And then there's that text message.
Oh, yeah.
From Lively to Baldoni, where she compares herself to Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. And she's saying that she has, quote, "a few dragons who protect those that I fight for."
That text message, which got out to the public, caused a big stir online. Some people thought it was just a funny pop culture reference. Harmless, right? But others saw it as kind of a hidden threat.
Right.
Like she was saying she would use her powerful connections to protect herself and maybe even get back at anyone who crossed her. It's one of those things that can be read in a bunch of different ways.
Totally.
But it definitely helps Owen's argument that maybe Lively's wielding her influence, in a way that could seem intimidating.
Yeah, and it gets at this whole performative side of social media, right? Where you have public figures trying to create these perfect images of themselves online. And this text, whether she meant it as a joke or a threat, gives you a peek behind that curtain, right? Into how complex Lively's public image really is and what can happen when that kind of communication gets out in the digital age.
So we've got allegations of inappropriate behavior, questions about who really has the power, whispers of celebrity influence, and now a Game of Thrones metaphor.
Right.
I mean, where does it even go from here?
Well, this is where things take a turn.
Yeah.
So remember, Lively said that they weren't recording sound during that scene.
Right.
So it was kind of a he said, she said situation.
Yeah.
But Baldoni decides to fight back by, you know what he does.
Right.
He releases the footage to the media.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So everyone gets to see and hear what happened. I mean, talk about a game changer.
A whole game changer.
Right.
Yeah, and the footage shows them, Lively and Baldoni, having this conversation that, I don't know, it could be seen as just playful banter.
Yeah.
Or maybe some underlying tension. They're joking about their spouses. And there's even this part where Baldoni leans in and says something like, I'm probably getting my beard on you.
Huh?
And Lively says, it's okay, I'm probably getting my spray tan on you.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, like, not exactly what you'd picture when you think of someone being harassed.
Right.
At least that's how Owens spins it.
That's exactly how she plays it. She uses that footage to say that Lively made up or at least exaggerated these claims. She points to how they seemed to be joking around as proof that it wasn't as serious as Lively said it was in her lawsuit.
But Lively's lawyers, they weren't having it.
Oh, no.
They called it like a manipulative media stunt meant to, sway public opinion.
Yeah. They argue that even in the footage, you can see Lively leaning away from Baldoni sometimes. Like she's trying to get some space. And they say that her acting all lighthearted was just a way to protect herself, to deflect his advances.
So the footage itself becomes this whole battleground. What one side sees as proof that he's innocent, the other side says it's evidence of, subtle manipulation and coercion.
Right. It shows how differently we can see and interpret things, especially now with social media, where we only get these tiny snippets of events, often taken out of context. And it shows how important it is to think critically and try to see all sides of the story when you're trying to figure out what really happened.
Yeah, and it shows the limits of evidence. Like, even with video, there's still room for people to see what they want to see and tell different stories about it.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that the truth can be really hard to find, especially when everyone has a way to share their version of things.
Right.
And when celebrity and power are involved, well, that makes things even more complicated.
This whole thing reminds me of that saying, perception is reality, right? Both sides are building these narratives that fit their own point of view and what they're trying to achieve.
It's a perfect example of how public arguments usually work, especially when you're talking about high-profile cases. We see this all the time with legal battles, politics, even everyday conversations. The way you frame things, the words you choose, the evidence you focus on.
Right.
All of that shapes the story and influences how people see the situation.
Okay, so we've got conflicting stories, different interpretations, and video evidence that just muddies the waters even more. What's next?
Well, this is where Ryan Reynolds, Lively's husband, a major Hollywood player himself, gets dragged into all of this.
Ooh, this is where it gets juicy. Tell me more.
So Baldoni says that Reynolds used his platform to make fun of him in the lawsuit in a scene from the Deadpool and Wolverine movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he points to certain lines that seem to be about the case. Like one character asks, where in God's name is the intimacy coordinator? Which is clearly referencing Lively's claim, right?
Yeah.
That there wasn't one there. And there's also this line where a character talks about starting a podcast that monetizes the women's movement.
Oh.
Which some people think is a dig at Baldoni because he used to have a podcast about feminist issues.
So now we have this potential Hollywood feud that's bleeding into big film franchises.
It really makes you question where the line is between a personal fight and a public spectacle, especially when celebrities have such a massive reach.
Yeah.
Is Reynolds just sticking up for his wife, or is this just a coincidence? And what does it say about how power can be used, or at least seem like it's being used to shut people up?
This is getting so complicated. I feel like I need a flow chart to keep track of everyone and where they stand.
I know, right? Yeah. And this is just the beginning. We're about to get into the premiere snub, the Woody Allen comparison, and this unexpected link to Wendy Williams' conservatorship. Buckle up, because this deep dive is just getting started.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, let's go. And things get even more, I don't know, tangled, I guess, when you look at what happened at the premiere. It ends with us.
Yeah.
Baldoni says that he and his family weren't allowed to go, basically. Like, they were stuck watching it from the basement.
Seriously?
Yeah.
While Lively and Reynolds were up there celebrating?
Yeah.
Ouch. That's got to sting.
Yeah.
It really shows you who has the power here.
For sure. Whether it was intentional or not, being excluded like that sends a pretty clear message. It supports what Owens is saying, that Lively and Reynolds are using their fame to control the story and maybe punish anyone who questions them.
This whole thing really makes you think about those unspoken rules in Hollywood and like who's really in charge.
It's like a mini version of those power dynamics you see everywhere, right? Who gets to be in the room? Who gets to speak? Who gets silenced?
Yeah.
These are questions that go way beyond just celebrity gossip.
And Owens takes it even further, connecting Lively's accusations against Baldoni to Lively's past defense of Woody Allen.
Yeah, she brings up the hypocrisy, right? Pointing to Lively praising Allen, even though his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, has accused him of abuse for years.
Right.
It's a pretty bold move, bringing in another controversial figure like that, and basically comparing the two situations.
So it's like Owens is saying, wait a minute, how can Lively be so quick to accuse Baldoni when she's defended someone accused of something similar?
Exactly. She's questioning Lively's judgment and if she's being consistent. Can you support someone accused of abuse and then turn around and accuse someone else of the same thing?
Yeah, it's a tough question. It makes you think about what we believe, how people should be held accountable, and how social norms change over time.
What might have been okay or defensible years ago might not be okay now. Owens is definitely challenging Lively's moral high ground, suggesting that what she's done in the past weakens her accusations now.
It's a strong argument, and it forces us to think about how public figures deal with arguments against them.
It speaks to how hard it is to change your perspective, especially with all the attention on abuse and power imbalances these days. How do we make sense of past actions when our values have changed? How do we hold public figures responsible for what they've said and done, both before and now?
And Owens, she doesn't stop there. She takes it even further and connects Lively's case to the Wendy Williams situation.
Oh, yeah.
That talk show host who was put under conservatorship.
Right, and this is where Owens expands her critique to what she sees as a bigger problem in society, the potential for abuse within the legal and financial systems. She's saying that both Lively and Williams are examples of powerful people or institutions using their position to control others.
It's weird because on the surface, these two cases seem totally different. One's about harassment on a movie set. The other's about a talk show host's personal and money problems.
Right.
What's the connection Owens is making?
She's focusing on how powerful people or groups can take advantage of their position to control other people's lives. With Lively, it's about using her celebrity to manipulate a film and maybe silence dissent. With Williams, it's about the bank and the court-appointed guardians taking charge of her money and life.
So Owens is saying there's this pattern of control and taking away power, even though the situations themselves are different.
Exactly. She's making the case that these seemingly unrelated situations are symptoms of a bigger systemic problem. It's a thought-provoking argument that makes us think critically about how power works in society and how even well-intentioned systems can be used to limit individual freedom.
Okay, let's dive into Wendy Williams' situation specifically. How does she end up under conservatorship?
So, it's complicated. She was going through a tough divorce and acting a little erratically, maybe because of alcohol abuse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, her financial advisor apparently told Wells Fargo, where she had her accounts, about some strange spending habits.
And that's when things took a turn for the worse, right?
Yeah. Wells Fargo did something unusual. They froze her accounts and went to court to ask for a temporary financial guardianship.
Wow.
They said it was to protect her money, but some people saw it as them overstepping, especially since she hadn't been declared mentally incompetent.
So she goes from a messy divorce and some questionable spending to having a court-appointed guardian controlling her life.
Exactly. And this guardian, Sabrina Morrissey, has been criticized for how she's handled Williams' affairs. There was supposed to be a documentary about Williams, but Morrissey reportedly shut it down, which led to lawsuits from the production companies. It became a fight over who's telling the truth, with Williams' supporters questioning the bank and Guardian's motives, while others said the conservatorship was necessary for her well-being.
So another situation where power struggles and competing stories are front and center.
And Owens is totally on Williams' side. She says Williams has been unfairly imprisoned and stripped of her independence. She emphasizes that Williams, despite her problems, deserves to manage her own life and finances. She even compares it to Britney Spears' situation, bringing in the hashtag Free Britney movement and highlighting how conservatorships can be abused.
It's a powerful comparison, playing into the public's growing distrust of institutions and worries about losing individual freedoms.
Owens is using the momentum of a high-profile case like Britney Spears to bring attention to what she sees as a similar injustice happening to Wendy Williams. She's saying that being crazy or on drugs shouldn't automatically mean you lose your rights, especially when there might be other reasons behind it.
And to make her point even stronger, Owens brings up other celebs who struggled with addiction or mental health but weren't put under conservatorship, like Lindsay Lohan and Charlie Sheen. She also mentions a recent interview Williams gave on The Breakfast Club, where she seemed clear-headed and articulate, directly contradicting claims that she's not mentally capable.
Yeah, it's a strategic move, using public figures and media personalities to challenge the official story and sway public opinion. By showcasing Williams' own words and pointing to celebrities who manage their issues without conservatorships, Owens is trying to weaken the argument that those measures were necessary for Williams.
So Owens is saying Williams can handle her own affairs and that the conservatorship is more about control than care.
Exactly. She's questioning the motives of everyone involved, implying that they might be keeping Williams under such tight control for financial reasons. It's a bold claim, but one that resonates with the public's increasing skepticism of institutions and those in power.
This whole deep dive is really making me rethink what I thought about celebrity, power, and the systems that are meant to protect vulnerable people.
That's the power of something like this. It pushes us to go beyond the headlines and really dig into the complexity of these situations. It encourages us to think critically about the information we consume and the stories we create.
Yeah.
And it makes us question who benefits from these stories and who might be silenced or left out.
We've covered so much, from leaked footage and Game of Thrones references to power plays and questions about conservatorship. What's Owen's final take on all of this?
Owens ends her analysis with a clear call to action. She's fully behind Baldoni, believing Lively made up or exaggerated her claims for personal gain, and she's strongly advocating for Williams to be released from her conservatorship, saying it violates her basic human rights and might be motivated by financial gain for those in control of her money.
It's a powerful stance that's sure to generate both support and pushback from viewers. Owens definitely isn't afraid to rock the boat and get people talking.
That's part of what makes her such a polarizing figure. She's outspoken and willing to challenge the status quo. Whether you agree with her or not, she makes you confront uncomfortable truths and think critically about the issues.
This deep dive has been a wild ride. We started with Hollywood drama and ended up discussing complex issues like power, control, and the potential for abuse within systems.
Right. It's been eye-opening, for sure.
And it's a reminder that behind all the glitz and glam of celebrity, there are real people and real consequences. It's easy to get lost in the gossip, but it's important to remember that these situations involve real lives and legal battles.
It's also a reminder that we can't always believe what we see or hear at first glance. There are often hidden layers to these stories, and it's crucial to think about different perspectives and motivations before making up our minds. Owens leaves us with a final thought-provoking question. If being crazy or on drugs is enough to justify a conservatorship, should someone like Joe Biden, who she claims shows signs of cognitive decline, also be under such measures?
Well, that's a curveball.
It is. Owens is highlighting what she sees as a double standard. She's saying that if mental capacity is the main concern, those rules should apply to everyone equally, no matter how famous or powerful they are or what their political views are.
It's a bold question that really pushes the limits of the conversation and makes us examine our own biases. It feels like she's throwing down a challenge.
She is. Whether you agree with her or not, it's a question that sparks a larger conversation about how we define competency, who makes those decisions, and how we ensure fairness in a system that can often feel unfair and unpredictable.
Yeah, it's a point that's hard to argue with. If the bar for conservatorship is mental capacity, then shouldn't it be applied to everyone the same way? I mean, it brings up all sorts of ethical and legal questions.
For sure. Owens is using this kind of extreme example to show what she sees as a double standard. You know, like certain people get treated differently because of their power, their status, their political leanings. It's a provocative point, and it makes you think about the possibility of bias and how the law might not always be applied equally.
It also makes you wonder about the reasons behind conservatorships in the first place. I mean, are they always about protecting the person, or could there be other things going on like, financial gain or wanting to control someone's money?
That's definitely worth considering. Owen seems to be suggesting that in cases like Wendy Williams's, the conservatorship might be less about her well-being and more about controlling her assets. It's a tough claim to prove, but it does tap into this growing distrust people have towards institutions and those in power.
This whole deep dive has been a wild ride.
Yeah.
From leaked Hollywood footage and celebrity feuds to discussions about conservatorship and how power can be misused. It's a lot of process.
It really is. And it highlights how important it is to think critically, especially when you're dealing with these narratives that involve celebrities, power dynamics, and accusations of wrongdoing. It's easy to get caught up in the drama and the sensationalism, but you have to take a step back, consider different perspectives, and think about the motivations of everyone involved.
Owens definitely has a strong opinion, and she's not afraid to share it. Whether you agree with her or not,
Yeah.
she makes you look at these issues from a different angle.
That's what makes her such a compelling commentator. She challenges conventional thinking and sparks debate. By linking these seemingly separate cases, she's encouraging us to look at bigger societal problems and how power plays out in different settings.
I gotta admit, I thought this was going to be all about Hollywood gossip, but I ended up with something much more thought-provoking. It made me realize how easily we accept surface-level stories without thinking about the deeper implications.
That's the beauty of a deep dive. It's about going beyond the headlines and exploring the subtleties of these stories. It's about recognizing that things aren't always what they seem, and that even events that appear unrelated can be tied together by themes of power control and the fight for autonomy.
It's also a reminder that we all have a responsibility to be critical of the information we're given, to question assumptions, and to speak out against narratives that are unfair or silence opposing views.
Absolutely. In a world where information is everywhere and often driven by anger and division, it's more important than ever to have thoughtful conversations, seek out diverse perspectives, and strive for a more balanced understanding of the complicated issues we face.
This deep dive has been truly eye-opening. I think I need a minute to digest it all.
Take your time. These are complex issues that require careful thought. And remember, the point of a deep dive isn't always to find clear-cut answers, but to spark your curiosity, encourage critical thinking, and give you the tools to navigate the intricacies of the world.
Well said. To our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you something to think about. We encourage you to keep exploring these topics, challenge your own beliefs, and engage in meaningful conversations about power accountability and the pursuit of justice.
Remember, knowledge is power. By digging deeper, questioning narratives and engaging in thoughtful dialogue, we can all contribute to a more informed and just world.